Hello, everybody. Welcome to Uncle's Throwback Thursday. Glad to be here with you tonight. See if I can make my screen a little bit bigger so I can see where I'm at. There we go. That's good. Hope everybody's doing good. It's cold here tonight, in the upper 20s. So, no matter where you live, if you live somewhere cold, it's good not to be in and watching the show. Got a great guest tonight, my friend David Keith, who's an actor. Going to tell you a lot about him before he calls in. But glad to have you here tonight. We've had a few shows trying to get things to learn all this under my belt. Getting a little bit better with it, remembering to turn switches on. Hello, Betty Edmondson. First one on tonight. Good to see you. Anyway, David Keith will be here tonight. I'm going to tell you before he comes on a little bit about him if you don't know him. I want to mention my items of the week real quick. I always do this, and I want to get it out of the way before David calls in. If you watched Old Brother Where Thou, there's you some real Dapper Dan right there. That's what George Clooney was always looking for, was his Dapper Dan. Said he don't want fob, he's a Dapper Dan man. And anyway, when I first signed on with Pine Castle Records, Tom Riggs owned that company, and he was passing these out one time. Tom Riggs cigars, Pine Castle. Kind of rare, you can't find them anymore. I don't smoke, so a lot of people got these things and smoked them up, but I saved mine because I don't smoke. Alright, something I'm real proud of. And, it don't really matter which way you are on this, but it was good for me because I'm pretty sick right now. But there we go. Got my COVID-19 first shot yesterday, and I've heard all the stories about people jumping off bridges and running into walls and going into comas and stuff, and that scare tactics. But hey, I'm fine. I feel no different than I did when I went in. I had a big line there, but the line moved fast. We had they had probably 10 or 15 people doing the injections where I was at. So when I came up, there was a big line, maybe a couple of hundred people, and I thought, oh wow. But that couple of hundred people moved like in 10 minutes. So really glad to get that done. I'm going to get my other one on the 21st. And regardless of your thoughts or beliefs on this, I think that shot, the vaccine, is going to help knock us back a whole lot. And if you don't do this, at least wear a mask. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything for you to do that, and it may save a lot of people. But I want to talk a little bit about some things going on. I've mentioned I've got a big Dobro CD coming out real soon. About 23 players on that thing, and I just signed a deal today with a major record company to get that out. So that's going to be good. Going to get that out here real soon. It's pretty much finished. Just got a couple of things to do with it, and we'll be done. So it's going to be a big thing, and I'm real proud. But let me talk to you about David Keith a little bit before he gets on. I know not most, because he's been in so many movies, but I'm going to tell you a few movies this guy's been in. Well, first off, he had his own series called Lone Star that was on for a while, and he's been in TV shows like Texas Ranger, Walker Texas Ranger, CSI, NCIS, Hawaii Five-0. He was on that quite a bit. A series called Class, The Outer Limits, Law and Order, Happy Days. He was on a lot of stuff, and the movies he's been in, he was on Daredevil. He was Ben Affleck's dad, if you saw that movie. He was on Officer and a Gentleman. He had one of the big parts in that, he and Richard Gere. If you'll remember that, he was the one who hanged himself, and that was David Keith. And David always told me he took his mom to see that movie, and that scene come up, and he said she just started crying, and said she'd never go to one of his movie premieres again because she didn't want to see her son get hurt. And I guess I can imagine that because it was so realistic. But if you've not seen An Officer and a Gentleman, it's really, really a great movie. Let me get untwisted here a little bit. He was in the movie Carrie, also Behind Enemy Lines. Major League 2, that was a big movie. He had a big part in that. He was our buddy Jack, and Indian in a Cupboard, Two Jakes, Firestarter, Lords of Discipline, just all kinds of movies. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He was in several videos. He was in Ricky Skaggs' video, Country Boy. If you ever pay attention to the very end, there's a couple comes up and a guy with real big hair, which that was David Keith back then, and his part was he asked if anybody'd seen Ricky Skaggs, and the street guy said no, and David said they must have took the wrong train, and it's kind of a cool little piece where he did a cameo on that. Uh, he was in a major part in Patty Loveless' video, Blame It On Your Blind Cheating Heart. And he's been in a lot of stuff. David has a lot of commercials, things like that. But when he comes on, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I've known David for gosh, a long time now, and I actually met David. A friend of mine was in film school with him at UT, and he was actually teaching that class. And I knew they were getting ready to do a movie of some sort, so I sent him one of our CDs, which back then it was probably a Wildfire CD. It's been a long time back, and he liked it, and we hooked up, and we've been buddies ever since. And I know right now he's been on the lockdown since the COVID started, so yeah, it'll be good to talk to him a little bit, and this was a good way to catch him at home because he's always gone. So anyway, I'm glad to have you guys in. I'm going to scroll before he gets in. Michelle Burris, glad to have you in. Valerie Smith, one of my good buddies there, great artist, great musician, singer, good friend, Valerie Smith. Cindy Cowart Puckett, hey Phil, glad to have you. Jason Lawrence, glad to have you. Michelle Burris. Let's see. Tim Bates, hey Tim, glad to have you on. You're one of my good buddies, and I'm thinking about you all the time. I want you to know that. Praying for you, and I hope you're doing well. Larry Pancake, now Larry writes a bunch of stuff. He does a lot of different things, movie-wise, documentary stuff. And a couple of years back, me and Larry went over to David Keith's house, and he taped a segment with David. So glad to have you on tonight, Larry. Michelle Burris, you're looking great. David's not on yet. That's just me. So you have to save that, and I know better. Thank you, though. It's nice. Appreciate you. Steve Morton, the Dobro King. You're the Dobro King. I did not know that. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Let me scroll back up here where I can see myself. No, Steve Morton. I went to school with him. Had class with his brother. Didn't know Steve real good in school, but I've got to know him so good through Facebook, and just one fine guy. And the only guy I know that has a Cobra, and it's a mean looking car. You folks have seen those one seaters with the roll bars. Steve's got one of those, and I know he'll never let me drive it, but I hope I can touch it sometime. But glad to have you, Steve. Betty Edmondson just wrote back and said she's getting her vaccine tomorrow, and I'm glad for that, Betty. You need that in the line of work you're in or in anything you do. And Kim Ingram, she's getting ready to get her second shot. Congratulations on that, Kim. It's awesome. And Jason Lawrence said David's a huge UT fan. Yeah, he is that. You go to his house and it's all orange inside. You used to always see him on the sidelines anytime they played ball. But anyway, they had some coaches come in at one time and changed all that. I won't mention their names, but got rid of a lot of the sideline people. So David had started sitting up in the crowd. but he didn't mind. He didn't care. But yeah, he is a big fan of UT. And let's see, Debbie Lynn Cantwell, glad to have you. Debbie's out in the West, I believe Washington State. Glad to have you on. Cody Richardson, glad to have you. Cindy Martin, glad to have you, of course. Jason Lawrence, Debbie Jones. Debbie's an old friend of mine from the Buddy's Barbecue days. And speaking of that, Dennis Lakin's right below her. He's an old friend from the old Buddy's Barbecue days as well. We go back a long way. He's a great musician, great guitar player, has a band called Stony Creek, and works with my son at Pioneer Heating and Air with our old buddy Gordy. Gordy's one of the big sponsors of the Tennessee Smokies. So anyway, glad to have all these people on. Rex Webb, glad to have you. And I thanks so much, buddy. He hoped I got some good results from my vaccine. I hope so too, and I appreciate you. Brian Smith, glad to have you. Brian's a really good friend. I think Brian lives out of Nashville, but he's a fine fella. And Michelle Justice, glad to have you. And Brandon Hyde and Don, I hope I pronounced it right, Don Coochie. I think that's right. Hope that's right. Glad to have you. And my good buddy, got to tell you something about this guy right here, David Hadcock. He's on tonight. Me and David went to a school called Chilhowee here in Knoxville, and I think we were like in first, second, third grade. I left in the fourth to play music. No, I actually left fourth to move. We moved to a new area where I went to a school called Gibbs. But David was my third grade, one of my third grade buddies. And anyway, I get on Facebook when it pops up, and David pops on, and David's a doctor. And anyway, I'm just proud of him. He's done very well. David has been part of my cancer walks, done those. He and his wife, they're just really good folks. And glad to have him on. And Tim Bates, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. Jesse Jeffries is on. Kathy and Robert Sweat looking good and sounding good. Phil, thank you. And trying to stay healthy. That's the best I can do. But I saw my doctor yesterday, and he told me, said we get a lot of sick people in here, and said you're one of the sicker folks that we have, which is always good to hear. But he said you never really look sick. And I got looking around yesterday. There's so many people that, are dragging in and all, and God love them. I hate seeing people like that. But I don't know. I don't know why that I'm in cancer treatment 10 years and on dialysis and still getting around as good as I do. I mean, I do know why, and we'll talk about some of that stuff at the end when we talk about our faith and all that and stuff. But that's not something that just happened. I know that I've had a lot of intervention, a lot of friends praying, and it's why I get around good. And I appreciate you keeping that up. Hope I can get back to picking again when this COVID's over with. I'm ready for that. And Eddie and Robert, Kathy and Eddie Sweat, some of my good buddies there. Eddie's a fine musician from this area, a good dude, really like him. And let's see, who else we got here? Karen Simmons said she loved those Buddies Barbecue days, and those were great days. Really enjoyed them myself. And Gary Tullock, glad to have Gary on. Gary's dad played with Flatt and Scruggs. He was a bass player, Jake Tullock. And, Jake was a big deal with that band. So, I've met Gary since, and Gary's a fine guy. I never got to meet his dad, but if his dad's anything like he is, I know his dad was a good dude. And I think this might be David calling in right now. Sure is. Hello, David.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Good.
Oh, there's my alarm going off. I set my alarm in case I fell asleep here in the recliner.
I hear you. You turn it off there, and we
I
wait.
turned it off.
Oh, buddy, we're glad to have you on tonight. This is something I've been doing for a while, and I'm glad you wanted to come in and do it.
Yeah, sounds great.
We've
Are
been,
we on the are we on the air now?
yeah, you're on the air. I've already been talking.
Already on the air. Okay, I
Oh,
thought maybe in show business in my show business they always, if they need you at 8:15, they'd have you on the phone by about 5:15.
well,
Wait.
see, that's good show business. Mine's lame show business. You
No,
see.
but I thought it was probably an 8:30 show, and you were having me on at 8:15. Well, hello everybody out there in Phil Ledbetter land.
David, we're glad to have you on tonight. I've been talking about you. I went through a bunch of your movies before you went on. I ran out of air. You've been on so many movies and TV series spots, and you've just done so much stuff. But before we get into all that, we want to start kind of early. Now, you were born and raised here in Knoxville.
Yep.
And did you go? I may be wrong on this. Was it Doyle or South Doyle High School?
No, there was. I went to Young High School.
Young, that's right. Well, see, my facts. I've tried to take in too much.
Well, that's where they, now it's South Doyle.
Okay.
And see, there was a Young High School and a South High School.
Okay.
And we were as big a rivals as Alabama and Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
And they combined those two to make South Young.
Mm-hmm.
And after they built Doyle, and then they combined South Young and Doyle and made South Doyle, and which has, I guess, the Young campus over there. But anyway,
Right.
I digress.
All right. Well, how old were you when you decided you wanted to start acting?
I was, let's see, I was a junior in high school because I had a small speaking part in The Music Man. I was the bad guy. And at Young High School, and I told my it was the choral director that actually, we did, with the chorus put on the plays. We didn't have a drama department, but the
Right.
chorus, and I was always in all the different levels of choruses because I love singing.
Sure.
And I said, I said, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to me early the next year and he said, I'm thinking of doing The King and the King and I. Would you consider playing the King? And I played the King and the King and I my senior year in high school, and then went on to major in theater at the University of Tennessee.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, what year did you get out of school? Not trying to date you or nothing.
No,
I
don't mind. I'm 66 years old, born in 1953, and I graduated from Young High School in 1972.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into some of your movies here, David. I know there's probably been a lot that are special, but what is probably one of your very favorite movies that you ever got to be part of?
Well, I have two answers to that question. I've been asked it before. I think the best movie from beginning to end that I was ever involved in was the movie called The Great Santini with Robert Duvall, Michael O'Keefe, Blythe Danner, and I was the bad guy in that small bad guy role.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite movie to perform in was Heartbreak Hotel, where I played Elvis, because
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a frustrated rock star
Mm-hmm.
or singing star, and I got to sing all the stuff in that and go in the recording studio, and I just that was so much fun. T. Graham Brown's band was my backup band. They were called the Rack of Spam, and they were my backup band in the movie, and that was just because there was so much music involved in that. That's my favorite movie that I was ever in. Not that it was the best movie I was ever in, but the one I had the most fun doing.
I have that on DVD. That was I was probably one of the first movies that I saw after I got to know you, and you did an awesome job in it. I mean, I didn't realize till later that you were doing all the singing in that.
I didn't do all the singing. There was they mixed mine and Elvis's voice together on one song, but
okay.
in the trilogy, in the trilogy, that's me singing the whole thing.
Wow.
The big concert. Yeah.
You did really good in that.
Thank you.
Let me see. Let me get into some things. Now, you're a big bluegrass guy. You like bluegrass pretty good.
I love bluegrass. Absolutely love it. I'm not a scholar of bluegrass,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the newer bluegrass that I mean, I listen to Bluegrass Junction all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I like about half of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the newer kind of, I don't know, funky kind of stuff. I am a very traditional bluegrass fan.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on Flatt and Scruggs, and in the '60s, every Saturday in Knoxville, you had Porter Wagner and the Wilburn Brothers, and then Lester Flatt, Flatt and Scruggs Grand Ole Opry Show,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't wait. I like Porter Wagner, but I like the Wilburn Brothers better because of their harmony. But the best was when Flatt and Scruggs came on. That was the highlight of my evening.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part of that was Josh Graves' Dobro.
Oh yeah.
I fell in love with that Dobro. I didn't really know what it was. Finally, I heard him mention what it was, and I just couldn't wait for him to do a solo.
Oh yeah.
Or sometimes he'd do a whole instrumental solo. Like the whole song would be him. Not often, but I fell in love with that instrument, and then as I got a little older, became a teenager, I got into James Taylor and learned to play all his songs on the guitar, and then got into Johnny Winter and Allman Brothers, and I was off into the rock scene kind of as what my favorites were. And then in college, I met a good buddy of mine, Steve Davis, who's passed away, but all his friends from Maryville, and they turned me back on to bluegrass.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, we like bluegrass music. I said, oh, I love bluegrass. I love it. I haven't listened to it in forever. And so I got into the Seldom Scene and Boone Creek and J.D. Crowe and all the stuff that, there in the 70s. And but even some of those albums, they'd have some slightly progressive bluegrass songs, but the ones that were traditional, Old Crossroads.
Oh yeah.
Walking in Jerusalem, and especially I love the traditional bluegrass gospel songs, and so I would gravitate, even on those albums, I would gravitate towards the traditional sound, and that's still what I love. I mean, on your last album, guess which song is my favorite on your album?
The All Stars album. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess the gospel song on there.
What's the name of it?
I've got it right here. Let me see. I should know. Ready and Waiting, maybe?
Ready and Waiting, yes, sir.
Oh, you just probably made somebody happy because Barney Rogers wrote that tune, and he usually tunes in every night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that is a good song.
I also think that's your best solo on the album.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Thanks for that. I'm going to back up just a little bit on you here
Sure.
with a couple questions. You was talking about your favorite being Flatt and Scruggs. You always loved them. And before you came on, I was talking, and he's online now, Gary Tulloch. His dad was the bass player with Flatt and Scruggs during all their highlight years, and he's online right now with us. So,
wow.
Yeah, he's
Oh my
told me
gosh.
some stories because they used to come to his house and practice in the living room. Imagine that. So
Oh my gosh.
he was there for that, but Gary's in tonight with us listening. And I wanted to ask you another thing. You talk about Boone Creek and all that. Did you ever go to Buddy's Barbecue?
I was out of town most of the time when the Buddy's Barbecue thing was happening. So I never, ever went. Now, I have heard somebody gave me a tape. Maybe Lynn Stallmaster or somebody gave me a tape that I think was Ricky Skaggs at Buddy's Barbecue.
Yeah, I gave you one a long time back. Now, Ricky played with Boone
Maybe
Creek.
that was it.
I bet it is. I was just curious, since You
Now
were
I
pretty
never made
close.
it there.
Oh my gosh, I
Well,
can't
I
believe
see.
that. I
I
know.
was only in Knoxville, on football weekends
Yeah, sure.
because I lived in New York and L.A. for
Right.
nearly 30 years.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew that. It's just I just for some reason thought maybe you had went down there a time or two, but the time frame, I mean, of course, uh, it's kind of hard to fly in for for bluegrass shows. I understand that, but
Yeah, yeah,
buddy,
and I had to work during the week. I mean, I was usually
sure,
shooting something, and
sure, sure.
but I had it put in my contract that I had to be free to at least get back to the football games.
I I remember before I knew you, you were always on the sidelines, and
Yeah,
it was funny
yeah,
because me and JD would be, in the hotel room or something, and we wouldn't be watching it unless it'd be Tennessee playing Kentucky or something. JD would come and watch it, and we'd see you on the sidelines, and JD would say, "Do you know that guy right there?" And I'd say, "No, not really," because I didn't know you at the time. But that's going to lead us into what I'm talking to now. Is JD met you because you were working at the time. You were going to do a movie on Keith Whitley, right?
yes, yeah. In the '90s, I started working a movie about Keith Whitley, and I was originally Lori Morgan approached me about it in
Mm-hmm.
1990, and I had kind of been away from country music during that late '80s period,
Mm-hmm.
and I because it had just gotten so pop that I
Right,
couldn't
right,
listen
right.
to it, and 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 Lori approached. So I wasn't as familiar with Keith Whitley as I should have been,
Mm-hmm.
but Lori approached me about it for me to play Keith.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to work on it, but as the years went by, it took so long to develop the
Right.
project that I basically got too old. I mean, I got,
I
you
understand.
know, because the actor that has to play the adult Keith has to play him from 18 years old to 34
Yeah,
years
I
old. At least
understand
that's the
that.
way I did it. So I shelved the project, and then I had a skiing accident. I had an accident and tore out both my knees in
Hmm.
2005, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Blew out both my knees, and so I went back to work on the script and wrote it out and got an investor involved, and then he was going to put up all the money to have it made, and then he just pulled out, just like with
Hmm.
no, just like pulled out, project dead in the water,
Well,
and such are the heartbreaks of the movie making industry.
well,
But I learned a lot about Keith Whitley, a lot of stuff that it it was
that's what I was
it
going
was
to ask
pretty
you.
hard.
You went and
Yeah.
spent some time over in his hometown with his family, didn't you? And slept in
Oh
his bed.
yeah,
You told
yeah.
me.
His mama wouldn't have it any other way for me to wear his pajamas and sleep in his bed. And I
Wow.
could barely get into his pajamas because I was about twice as big as he was. And so yeah, I met the whole family, became good friends, and stayed good friends. Of course,
Yeah,
she's gone now, but
sure. What's one of the neatest things or weirdest things that you can tell on here that you learned about Keith?
oh well, he flatlined, drank himself into a flatline like no heartbeat 5 times
Wow.
during his life. The
Wow.
last one killed him.
Wow.
Um, but there were so many funny things about him. He could just walk into a room and just charm the entire room. And he did the best Lester
Flat.
Flat impersonation
He did.
that anyone has ever done.
Yeah, he
Um,
definitely,
a lot of people have heard that.
definitely.
I'm trying to think of something completely out of the way. He was so addicted to his cigarettes that he would set his alarm at 3 o'clock in the morning to wake up and smoke one.
I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
just so he could wake up and smoke a cigarette. If he'd
That's
stayed asleep, he wouldn't have had that midnight, that middle of the night cigarette.
no, he wouldn't have needed that if he'd have slept on through. But speaking of that, not to change subjects, but there's a
No,
little funny story. Uh, when I was playing with J.D. Crow, we had our band all together, and our bass player. We were in Boston, and it was winter time, and it was probably down in the teens. You know how it gets up there, and it
yeah,
had snowed, and it was terrible. With fire alarms go off, and everybody's getting out, and we get woke up because we're in a handicap room for some reason. It's the last room they had, so we've got strobe lights going off in our face and everything. And JD comes and knocks on the door and says, "You boys going outside?" And I said, "Well, it's pretty cold. If anything happens, we can just go out through this window here. We'll be on the ground." Well, they brought probably 10 or 12 big fire engines in with ladders and everything, and they are loading in all these people outside on the ground in blankets. And somebody knocks on our door, and it's the fireman, and he comes in and sitting over in the bed, because I've been looking out the window. Sitting over there in the bed closer to the door is our bass player smoking a cigarette, and he had set the fire alarms off for the whole building, and we weren't and we weren't aware of that. And we're sitting there in the room, and we didn't even go out and get cold, and he's over there covered up like a bear, and all these people's out there freezing, and all these fire engines. And I remember the guy come in and scolded him pretty good, and walked off, and then pushed a button on our alarm, and the fire engines pulled out. But he was like that. He doesn't smoke anymore, I don't think, but he would wake up in the middle of the night, and he'd smoke. And I guess those people that's addicted like that do that, know. But anyway, I knew you was going to do the Keith thing, and I knew you really, at the end, that you really, had studied him quite a bit. And there's a lot of Keith Whitley people on here tonight listening in. So, talking about bluegrass, I want to talk to you about a couple of things here. I want to talk about my buddy Steve Gully that passed away. I know you knew Steve well, and I wanted to see when you first heard about that and about his passing, and what you thought, and just things like that.
It just broke my heart. I mean, I had no idea he was even ill.
Yeah, it's quick.
It was just all of a sudden he was gone.
Yeah.
And he was just, golly. I mean, he just was such a kind and sweet person, and so incredibly talented. I'll tell you how he touched my life the most. He wrote a song called "That's What Ships Are For."
I was going to ask you about that. Yep.
And I on that Grasstown album, I was listening to that album. You had given it to me, and I'd listened to it once real quick while I was busy or doing something, and I loved it. And I don't know whether I lost it or what, but I found it, and I was on my way to Nashville. I was going back and forth to Nashville on like 1 or 2 Saturdays a month to teach an acting class, and I put that thing in. I said, this time I'm going to give it my full attention. And so that song came out, and I think my daughter Presley at the time was, she was born in 2002 on Elvis's birthday.
Wow.
Thus the name Presley. And but she was young, and I was thinking of when she grows up and goes off, like she has now, gone off to UT.
Right.
But that song, I was listening to it and listening to the words and thinking about Presley and thinking about, she'll only be a child and with me for so long, and then she'll be up and out of here. And I had to pull over on the side of the interstate and bawl my eyes out. And and of course you got me in touch with Steve, or the next time I was with you, Steve was with you. I can't remember the next time I got to tell him about it. I can't remember if you put me on the phone with him or if it was the next time you were playing with him. But I
think we were at a cancer walk. I think.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what it was. And I'm telling you what's the truth. That song just waylaid me. And thank goodness now that Presley is up and out of the house, my son Coulter, who's 9, and now I've got to think about that song all over again.
Oh, exactly. Now, Presley's in acting class, right?
She's majored in theater at UT. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. She's following Dad's footsteps, it looks like. So I know that
She
makes you
she would
proud.
she would not want to describe it that way, but that's exactly what it is. Yes.
Well, my son Matt's the same way, but playing, and I'm like you. I'm real proud every time I see him play, and know that
Well, sure.
know that I kind of, if it hadn't been for me, he would have probably never known what a dobro was. And
Well, you're his idol, and don't let him
man,
ever tell you any different. And
oh, he
you
al-
know that's true.
he always says that, and he's a good one, and I know Presley is too. I'm real proud of both your kids. I
You
mean,
remember when Presley used to clog when you guys had played
yeah,
down at the Buffalo Wild Wings?
God, she was little then.
Little bitty. She'd seen this group clog uptown. No, in Gatlinburg.
Hmm.
Saw it once, and they gave her a little lesson. You know how they do that
Sure.
up there on the sidewalk,
Hmm.
and so she got up there and started clogging, and oh my gosh, I've never been so proud in my life. And all those people out there, he's raising her right.
Well, I'll tell you what, you do, David. You've got some great kids, and it's weird. I mean, how long we've known each other, but I guess I knew you before Presley, so that goes back a little
Yes.
ways, I imagine, with
Yep.
that. But
Yep. Yep.
moving on to a couple of other things here. I want to get back into some of your movies and stuff like that. And you probably hate talking about that, like I do talking about bluegrass. But
No.
good, because I want to talk to you a little about it.
Whatever you want to talk about, buddy. It's your show.
Well, it's yours too for a little bit here tonight. I went to the premiere. You had invited me uptown to see the premiere of your series Lone Star that came out, and
Uh huh.
I just thought that was a great. I thought that was a great show, and when I saw it, I remember. I remember telling Lisa, I said, this show's going to be on every night or every week," and I hated they let that go. That was such a good show, a good series.
Oh, that was one of the greatest jobs I've ever had in my life.
You
And
did
that's
awesome.
that's it. Really crushed me that they didn't, give it enough time to let it develop an audience. And
Hmm.
the networks are so fickle; they'll be so high on a show, and if it doesn't pull the numbers they want it to pull, then they act like they didn't like it to start with.
Oh,
Well, we told you it was going to fail.
sure. Well, they had it up against Monday Night Football, didn't they, on the other channel or something
Yeah,
like that? That's stupid.
yeah.
That's
Monday Night Football and Dancing with the Stars.
how.
That's
Yeah,
what we were up
yeah.
against.
If it had been another night, it would have made a difference with that. But
Hmm.
that was a great show. I want to ask you about some other things. You did Happy Days, didn't you?
I did a Happy Day. It was one of my first jobs.
Was it?
When I got to LA in '78,
Hmm.
I ran against Richie Cunningham for class president.
Really?
This is with the time he was out of high school and he was in college.
Okay.
The Happy Days kids were basically still in high school and college in their 30s.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
so I ran against Richie Cunningham for class president, but he beat me.
I remember that episode. I think, or I saw it online or something. But that I always watch that show a lot. But I think you told me this. But who's the favorite actor you ever worked with?
Well, now that's again. I
Big
got two
question.
answers. I got no. I got two answers
Okay.
because my favorite actor. I mean, the actor that made me want to become an actor was Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
And so I did a movie with him called The Two Jakes, which was the sequel
Right.
to Chinatown, but it was a sort of convoluted, hard to understand movie that was not very successful. But at least I got to work with Jack in that movie, and,
Yeah.
and he directed the movie, and he's the best director I've ever worked with because he
Wow.
just lets an actor have total freedom, and which was wonderful.
Sure.
But the best 3 hours of my entire career, as far as just the act of pure acting goes, was the 3 hours that it took to shoot that face-to-face scene with Gene Hackman in Behind Enemy Lines, because Hackman is one of those actors that there's the depth of his
Mm-hmm.
ability and the depth of his soul is just it's just bottomless. And
Always liked him.
yeah, and you get in there and you just as deep as I would dig, he could go just as deep or deeper, and then I'd come back deeper, then he'd come back deeper, and it just was just the coolest thing. And I told him after it was over, I said, "That's the best." I've been in the business. I guess at the time it was 37 years or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to tell you that's the best 3 hours of my career.
That's awesome. That's he's a great one. I've always liked his work. And
Fabulous actor.
you worked?
Yeah.
Did you work with Robert Duvall?
I didn't. Well, I did two movies with Robert Duvall, but I didn't have much acting with him in
Mm-hmm.
either movie.
Really?
One was the Great Santini. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any scenes together,
Okay.
and one was a family a family thing with
Mm-hmm.
Robert Duvall and James Earl Jones, and I just had a tiny little part in it, and that I did sort of as a favor because it
Mm-hmm.
was a Duvall movie.
Mm-hmm.
The director like flew in to ask me to do this small role, and so I did it. But again, we hung around, we hung out a little bit, but we didn't really get to work together
Mm-hmm.
much.
Well, one movie a lot of people always ask me about when I tell them I know you is Major League Two. You
Yeah,
were the bad dude, Jack Parkman, right?
right, right. Yeah,
Uh, did you guys actually did you have to go through some training and stuff to I mean that's got
yeah.
to be
I
hard,
played baseball in high school,
right?
but yeah, we did. Steve Yeager, the
Right.
former catcher for the Dodgers,
Dodgers.
was our coach, and we had baseball practice every day.
Wow. Well, it shows in the movie. I mean, when I've watched it, it's obvious that it's not been a long time back that you played ball. Uh, you look like you could be right out there playing, and I always like the scene where you hit the home run and just kind of throw your arms and just stand there at the plate. I always thought that was pretty killer. Was that something you just did on your own or something?
Yeah, they let me celebrate however I wanted, and so I had a bunch of different celebrations that I used.
Well, let me ask you about a few. I've wrote some things down here, but now Daredevil. I remember watching that late one night, and I was in a hotel somewhere, and I'm sitting there halfway asleep, and all of a sudden, I see this guy come in, and I said, "That's David Keith, and you were Ben Affleck's dad, right, in that movie?"
Correct, correct. Yes.
Did you enjoy doing that movie? Was it fun or was it
It was yeah. It was tough because
yeah?
I had to put on. Um, I took a lot of steroids. I was lifting weights probably 5 hours a day and
Well,
boxing another 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and just bulking up as much as I could. And the very first night we shot, um, they were shooting all this stuff without me, and I basically fell asleep in my trailer. We were shooting all night. Then they woke me up about 4 o'clock in the morning to come shoot this fight scene where I'm supposed to
wow.
beat up these two guys.
Hmm.
And I stepped on my left leg and threw a roundhouse punch at one of these guys, and just I felt my knee just crunch. This
Oh
is the
Lordy.
very first day of shooting, and I've got all these boxing scenes coming up. Well,
Wow.
and we had to shoot the scene, so I said, "Here's what we're going to do," because I was flat on the ground. I could not get up. I couldn't put any weight on it. I said, "You tape my leg from the middle of my thigh to the middle of my calf, tape it with about 8 layers of duct tape. Just go up and down, tight as you can." And so they propped me up on my feet, and I finished that scene. It was the scene in the alley where they killed me, where they
Wow.
beat me to death. And
Wow.
and and so then they had to rearrange shooting and give my knee time to get well,
Jeez.
and then come in and shoot the boxing. But I had to wear a knee brace on that knee for all the boxing scenes.
Man, I didn't know that. That's that's pretty tough right there. I mean, people sometimes I guess they think that actors just come out of a trailer and go out there and do their work, but it's not like that at all, is it?
Well, if you there's a certain pride that some actors take in themselves that make them do things they
Right.
probably shouldn't do,
Right.
and I'm one of them. So I'm always wanting to do the stuff instead of the stunt man,
Right.
and I've gotten hurt a few times by being stupid like that. Stunt men are they're trained to do it. They're the ones that are supposed to do it, and you're supposed to let them do it.
Oh yeah.
And
Exactly.
my pride would always say, nope, nope, I'm going to do the stunt, and what didn't always pay off for me.
Well, your movies sure looked authentic. With I guess by the fact you were doing that. Because sometimes they'll have
Yeah.
things, they'll have people, and you can see them in another scene, a fight scene. It's obvious they're different sized people, and it kind of
Hmm.
throws that off. But speaking of that, I had something else I wanted to. Oh yeah, I know what I wanted to ask you. Something you told me one time, and we'll get on with this because I don't want to keep you too long, but may have a question or two from people on tonight. But when you did Officer and Gentleman with Richard Gere, that's probably, I mean, that was one of my wife's very favorite movies because she always went on about you, both of you guys, but especially you. She just thought you was the stuff, and I didn't know who you were, and I watched the movie, and the movie was just a great. It was a great movie, and the part you told me you had took your mom to the premiere and she had watched it, and there's a scene in there where you hang yourself in a closet, and
Hmm.
you told me about. And I don't mean to spring this on you because it might make you a little sad, but I remember what you told me about your mom that
Yeah.
she said she'd never go to another premiere with you or something like
No,
that.
she didn't say that, but it did. I didn't tell her. I was torn. I was saying, now, am I going to
Mhm.
prepare her for this and sort of blow the movie,
Okay,
or am I going to go ahead and let her ride like an audience member?
gotcha.
And I should have told her.
I've got you. I've got
It was too. It was devastating for
you. Yeah,
her, and
yeah,
of course that broke my heart.
sure, sure.
And I mean, she about went to the floor. We it was a. Well, I went to the movie premiere here in Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was out at East Town.
Was it?
I think it
Wow,
was. I can't remember for
wow.
sure where it was, but yeah, we went to the premiere here in Knoxville, and yeah, it was rough on her because that scene is so realistic,
Yeah, yeah.
and so that was tough for her. But
I,
no, she didn't say she would never go to another. She would never say that. She wanted to go to all the
I,
premieres with me.
I think she told me that, just didn't tell
Oh,
you that.
maybe, yeah.
No, but yeah, it's been a few years since me and you talked about that, so I was wrong,
Hmm.
but I knew that was hard thing on her to do. But
Well, maybe she might have told you that, but I don't
no,
think
she
she ever
did.
said that to me.
No, she didn't. I was joking about that. Now let me ask you. You were real big into a lot of the Elvis Presley stuff that they were doing. I guess the Elvis contest. I know that. Oh, my brain don't work, but the
I was a judge
the
in the
judge.
Elvis.
That's right.
I
Uh,
was a judge in Memphis,
mm-hmm.
and Presley and Nancy,
Right.
my now ex-wife, the three of us went over there, and we judged the um, impersonation, Elvis impersonator
Mm-hmm.
competition, and and those guys were good. They were good. There were some that looked like him, some that didn't, some that did the young Elvis, some
Mm-hmm.
that did the the ice cream suit Elvis, which is
Mm-hmm.
what they call the white suit,
Right. Right.
and uh, but I was impressed.
Did they
I
do their
was.
own singing and
Oh
everything?
yeah, oh yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah. They had to do their own singing.
Well,
Yeah,
that's good.
no pantomime.
Oh, that's really good right there. Now, so when you talk about something else, let's talk about this COVID going on. You've been locked in for a little while, haven't you? Like me.
The way I looked at it from day one is that everybody in the world's got COVID but me, and I'm not going to catch it. And anybody that's dumb enough to think this thing is a hoax or that they can laugh it off or they can not wear a mask is a moron.
Yeah.
And I'll tell that to everybody out there. You get your mask on or you're hurting you and me.
Yeah, it's no problem to throw a mask on, I don't think, and I don't get people
And
not wearing them.
with these new variants, I'm wearing two now.
Yeah.
I wear two surgical masks,
Yeah.
one on top of the other.
Yeah, exactly. I've been wearing these N95s. You know what they are?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, anytime that I'm in for medical stuff, see, I'm in a bad spot because I go in I go in twice a week for my dialysis, and I'm around all kinds of people that I don't know, so I always wear my N95. But I did get my first vaccine shot yesterday, so
Oh, great.
yeah, I got started on that. And I get my last one on the 21st, and you know what? I don't feel anything at all. You know, I was saying earlier before you came on, all these stories, horror stories that everybody's, talking about without getting political or anything,
Yeah.
which I don't
Right.
do that on
Yeah.
here, but
Well, now the second one
it's tougher.
The second one is tougher.
Yeah,
You might have a little low grade fever,
right.
and so, but I mean, my lord, anything's better than COVID.
Better than COVID. This first one, I'm no different than I was yesterday, but they say this first one's a primer or something like that to get you ready for the next one. And they say when the next one comes in that you've had it. So anyway, maybe it'll be over with soon because I want to come visit you. And we're supposed to go get some hot chicken.
Well, as soon as you and I get vaccinated,
yeah,
we're going to Jackie's Drink.
We're going to do that. Do you know when your vaccination will be? When you can get yours?
I'm not going to get mine until probably March.
Till March, okay. You should be able to get it now, right? But you gonna wait off?
No, they just in Knox County they
70, right?
it's 70 and above.
Oh, that's right.
And but I'm on a waiting list,
uh-huh.
and as soon as and also I'm going to get mine at CVS where I trade.
Right.
And excuse me.
You're good.
And CVS, the CVS and Walgreens, they're in charge of vaccinating all the nursing home patients,
right.
all the frontline workers,
right.
And so all the vaccines that they get go into those people.
Right. Sure.
But now that Biden is going to send vaccinations directly to the big pharmacy chains, that's gonna keep the state governments from slowing things down.
Yeah. Hopefully
it's going to move a lot faster.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get that stuff soon because we need it. And hopefully this variant, I saw my cancer doctor yesterday at UT, and he encouraged me, to get this, but they're thinking this vaccine could cover some of these variants, but they're a new one that they're saying it could just, it may not touch it.
They don't know as much about the South African variant.
Right.
It seems to be the most dangerous.
Right.
But our shots do cover the United Kingdom variant.
Right. Well, I think any coverage you get at all is better, than because that may be the variant you get, and hopefully we won't get any of that stuff. But, buddy,
right.
I wanted to. Before I go off, I just wanted to see if there's anything, I know you're like me, you don't have anything coming up because of this COVID, but I was looking on my notes here. You got anything that you
Nothing
might
to plug.
Share? Nothing to plug.
I tell you what.
Okay.
There is a 10-part series featuring Presley's godparents and basically my brother and sister from other mothers, Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams.
I know both of them.
Of course you do. And they have a 10-part series, 1 hour for each part, called It Was the Music. And it is one of the most remarkable series that you could ever see about the music industry.
Okay.
And I advise everybody to channel that show, to stream that show on wherever you do your streaming. You can stream it Amazon. You can do it on demand. You can do it just about everywhere.
What's the
But
name of it
it's
again?
called It Was the Music.
Was the Music?
Yeah. And I went over and did a little thing for them in Nashville, where I kind of did interviews with them and Emily Lou Harris and Buddy Miller, and we spent about 11 hours doing interviews to sort of wrap around some of the episodes of the show. And I think that was on, let's see, it was on every Sunday night from 9 to 10, and my stuff was on the first episode and the last episode, I think, or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
But I don't think mine's in. If you stream the show, I don't think you're going to see my stuff. But that's not important anyway. You need to definitely.
I will do that.
See, It Was the Music.
Was the Music. Now, Teresa was Patsy Cline, right?
Here it's Clarence Brown, right?
Yeah. And now Larry, is it Bob Dylan he played with?
Larry played with Bob Dylan on the road for 8 years. He won 3 straight Grammy Awards for Levon Helm's last 3 albums.
Wow.
He ran Levon's Midnight Ramble up in Woodstock. I heard Larry playing pedal steel at a club called City Limits in the Greenwich Village in New York in 1980. Maybe 80 or 81.
Right.
And I just walked in and went, dude, that's the real thing.
Right.
You're playing the real steel.
Right.
And we became friends.
Well,
and so I knew Larry for a while. Then when I did, Rick Derringer produced a demo that I did of some rockabilly music, and I did a Skeeter Davis song called Rockabye Boogie, and I wanted steel on it. And so Rick Derringer called the only steel player he knew, turned out to be Larry, right? So Teresa, meanwhile, she was living at my parents' house, finishing up her degree in theater at UT, and I bought her a one-way ticket to New York. She goes to New York, and I talked her out of 3 different marriages, 3 different engagements, one of them 2 weeks before the wedding.
Wow.
I just said, you're never going to stay married to this guy. You need to keep looking. So she, 2 or 3 years later, she says, well, I met somebody. And I said, well, tell me about him. She said, his name's Larry Campbell. I said, is he a steel player? She said, yes. I said, marry him. And they are married and have been since then.
Wow. And
they're Presley's godparents.
The first time I met them, you, and both of them, and somebody else went and played 3 churches one Sunday morning.
Yeah, it was Bill Taylor. You and me and Bill Taylor.
Bill Taylor, right.
And Teresa.
Uh-huh.
And then Larry came and sat in with us a little bit, and you played dobro, and we played two churches one Sunday. And
And then we ate at Spooky's. You remember?
That's right, we did. We ate at Spooky's, and then you go from Spooky's that was the Sunday soul food for a while, and then Chandler's for a while.
Yep.
But then once you discover Jackie's,
it's a different league, isn't it? Different league.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, we've been glad to have you on tonight, David. I know that I know this was a little different being the bluegrass thing, but it's like I told everybody, you're a bluegrass guy too. You know this music and you love it, and we're just glad to have you on, and hopefully.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I told you about my friends from Maryville in college. Most of them played bluegrass music, and so we had. We would get together every night after everybody get out of their classes and stuff. If I didn't have a rehearsal or something, we'd get together and play a little bluegrass, and almost every night all through college. And so,
that's cool.
That was my thing.
What all instruments do you play now? I know you play guitar. Do you play anything else?
I play a little piano.
Yeah, I knew you played piano,
but just by ear. I play guitar by ear, and I don't play. as long as I play guitar, I ought to be about 1,000 times better than I am. But you know, I play good enough to sing along with it, and I don't sing good enough to play along with it. But it's fun to do when I'm not making my real money acting.
Right. Oh, God put you where you're supposed to be, you know.
Yeah, I guess so.
And buddy, we're glad to have you on, and I'll be talking to you soon.
All right,
And
buddy.
you take care of yourself. Love you, David.
You too. I love you, Phil. Take care, buddy.
See, buddy. Bye.
Bye.
All righty. All right. That was David Keith. Glad to have him on tonight. Let me look down through here at some of our people we've had on tonight. Jason Lawrence asked if David plays, and David just answered that. He plays guitar. And hi, Phil from North Carolina. Love to hear you sing. Me, I can't sing. I'm terrible. I'm afraid to. I hum every now and then, even that. What it does, my dogs go downstairs, so I can't sing. But I appreciate it. And Kristen Davis said David went to school with my dad. I'm glad he's off the air right now because that'd really make him feel old. But favorite movie from Christy Allison Branson's Indian in the Cupboard. You know, I've never saw that, but everyone said it's really good. And Scott Kilborn from London, Kentucky. Hello, Scott. And Marcel Justice. Hello, David from Waverly Hall. And David Chichester, one of my good buddies there, is a great sound man, tuning in tonight. And Barney, I see you on. I hope you heard what David said about the songs on the album, that your gospel tune's his favorite one. So that's pretty big. We'll get him to do some voting at the IBMA. Rex Webb, glad to have David on the show. I appreciate it. Let's see. Joe Campbell, those have horns, Phil. I don't know what's got horns, but maybe it's me. I don't know. Let's see. Probably we were talking about movies. Eddie Sweat, great interview, guys. Has David ever written a song? I think he has, but we didn't talk about it. Carl Towns, Gary Tulloch, thanks for the shout out. I've got to take off, and I'll catch the last part later. Yeah, be sure to listen to that, Gary, because we talked a little bit more about you. And Sandy Lucas, hey, David. And Angie Pruitt Tolliver used to clog with David Keith's mom. That's cool. I wish I had told him that. I wish we'd have scrolled down while he was on here. And ask him if he ever worked with Knoxville actor and UT roommate David Dwyer. I think I've heard him talk about David Dwyer before. Sorry, Doug, that I've already got him off. And Larry Norfleet, glad to have you. Tom Smith, glad to have you. Joe Campbell, amen, David. We wear masks. My wife had cancer, and my 93-year-old dad has Alzheimer's. Yeah, you know, that's the thing about masks, and I won't get political about this, but you got to think about other people out there. I mean, it's like me. You know, you can look at me like this, and you don't know what's under. Just like a lot of people, don't know what's under their shirt, and then you get people like me here, and this is like what's under my shirt. I've got all this tubing and stuff running out. This goes right into my carotid arteries. And I'm not the only people walking around like this. Plus, I have cancer. And I've got a port over on this side, which you can't see because it's under the skin. But you just can't assume that you know people that you're walking right by, what's going on in their lives, how sick they may be, or what. And you could kill them by not wearing a mask. It just takes no time to pop it on. And if you don't believe in the vaccine, that's whatever. We're never going to get this stuff knocked back without a vaccine, and I know that. I'm from the medical end. I'm not a doctor or nothing, but I've worked in it a long time, and I do know we've got to get people, everybody on the same page with this. But at the least, wear a dang mask. I mean, you just never know who you're passing by, how sick they are. somebody that walks by you today, you could kill tomorrow if you've got the COVID or something, or not even the COVID. What if you're walking by a person that if you've got the flu or something, just the regular flu, you could kill them. Just think about others. That's something. I always talk about something on the show. It's inspirational, and it's just we gotta try to look out for each other a little bit here, and we got to dump the politics when it comes to life and death. Uh, you know, Look at it as what it is, and you know what's right and wrong, and you know that a mask, you know, anybody knows that a mask with half a brain knows that if you sneeze or whatever into it, and you're wearing a mask, it's going to catch the droplets before they hit somebody else. And the mask will also save you. But if you're a person that don't care about that, then whatever. But at least put on a mask to catch any droplets, because when we talk or anything to others, droplets come out, and you don't know you have the COVID or not unless you've been tested, and you could be tested and pick it up 10 minutes later. You just don't know that. So we just got to take care of each other a little bit with that, and that's not really a motivational or talk like we normally have, but if it saves some people's lives, let's think about everybody else around us. And speaking of that, I got on my Steve Gully shirt tonight. I've been thinking about old Steve, so I had to put that on. And I've been thinking a lot about him today. I was looking through my phone and found some voicemails, and it was just good to hear him talk. Good, but sad, calling, asking how I was doing and what I was up to, and just the same old Steve that has been gone since August 18th, and I miss him. But I want to go down through here real quick, and then we're going to sign off. My wife has been on here. She said David Keith's always been one of her favorite actors, but he's a better friend. Yeah, he has been a really good friend to us for sure, and thank the world to him. And my aunt's on here, Ruby Hitch, and she says David's a great actor. Just all kinds of people. Elijah Doty's on tonight. Debbie Cantwell said bye, David. We're going down to here. Timothy Bates again. Great show. Thank you, Timmy. Appreciate you. And let's see. Sandy Lucas Harden said she used to play by ear, and a great show. And Randy Green, hey Phil, late start for me. But Randy, you can watch us back, on my page if you want to do that. And Debbie Cantwell, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I will talk about who we've got here coming up. I know we're running just over a little bit, but Betty Edmondson, I'm glad you come on, and glad you like David. And Eddie Sweat again, thank you for being a good friend. And Mike Kelly, me and you, we've hung out with David quite a bit at these cancer walks. And Sandy McAllister, she's on there, and that's something I want to talk about. I'm going to have Sandy's husband on the show here in not next week, but the next week. Now, you probably don't know Sandy McAllister. You may know her through Facebook, but if you were into wrestling, my son was crazy about wrestling. If you watch the WWF, WWE, one of the superstars, it's been quite a few years back, but one of the superstars was a guy named Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And he was a big deal. He's a guy that would come out and blow fire, and he wrestled everybody. He wrestled Ric Flair, all those guys, the big WrestleMania shows. I mean, Ricky was a big deal in wrestling. I mean, this guy was huge. He was as big as you would want to get. He was, there on that line with Ric Flair and all those others. And I don't watch didn't watch wrestling. My son watched it a lot, but I knew all those names, and I knew who Ricky the Dragon was. But he's going to be my guest not next week, but the next, and we'll talk a lot about wrestling, and it'll be just great to have him on. But Sandy, glad to have you on tonight, and also, yeah, tell Ricky that he's a Knoxville original, and I'll make sure that they get to meet each other after this COVID's over with. Definitely, as long as I can hang out with both of you, it'll be good. Or all three of us. That's what I mean. So it'll be good. Joe Campbell, glad. Let's see. Glad you come on tonight. Definitely, and appreciate what you said. That's nice. Love you too, Aunt Ruby. We sure missed Robert Rabowski. I think that's right. Said we miss Steve Gully. Yes, we do. We do. And he's one of the best ever, in my opinion. And thank you, Jason Lawrence, for coming and watching the show tonight, and Billy Larmer. And glad you're on. And Don Cucci, Mike Kelly again. And anyway. Yeah, Mike Kelly, he sure is, and you need to call in because you know Ricky real well, and you know his wife real well, so you'll definitely have to call in. You might have to help me do the interview because he's been on your show before. Mike is the DJ over at Merle FM. He does the Sunday morning gospel show, and also you can catch him doing lately some of the afternoon shows. Mike's been in high demand. But he had Ricky on his show a long time back, and that was the first place I ever got to meet Ricky the Steamboat. And it was, you're going to enjoy Ricky. He's great. And Mike says Sandy's awesome too. Yes, she is. And Greg Pruitt, glad you watched the show. And Sandy says to you, thanks, Mile. No, she meant Mike. She just wrote Mile, but that's good. And Sandy, you have to be on the air with us when Ricky's on. And Timothy Bates, thanks Phil. I haven't shared it with many people. Well, I'm not going to share anything you don't want me to, but I'm just wanting to know that I'm praying for you, definitely. And anyway, I'm going to sign off for the night. I'm looking for somebody next week. I've got a few people on my radar that's going to be good. A good bluegrass act, artist next week. Like I said, I've got a few on my radar right now, and I've been blessed to be in a position where I know a lot of people, through the music. So I've got a lot of people I'm luckily going to be able to draw from, and hope it'll be people that you'll be interested in listening to. Just like it was David Keith tonight. David's not a bluegrasser, but he was a big actor, but he loves bluegrass. So, that's one reason I had him on tonight. And hopefully, we'll keep this format going back and forth. Have a bluegrasser next week, then have a world champion wrestler on the next week. So anyway, I'm going to remind you about all this. So we're going to have a good time. And I hope everybody has a great night. And just like we asked earlier, please throw on your masks. And if you get a chance to get a vaccination, think about it before you decline it. And, think about everyone else around you. And I appreciate you taking time to spend with me. It's been a good night. And I'll see you next Thursday. And I'm out of here. And I'm closing shop.